Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along to Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Very exciting program today. Not only are we streaming live on the likes of, well, YouTube, Facebook and all those other platforms, the real platform that we've been waiting for is LinkedIn Live. We're broadcasting today on LinkedIn Live, and a very good, warm welcome to all my connections, and hopefully you'll share this. If you do have a question, then please do leave it in the comments. You can leave a question while the program is on. Give us a bit of a hand clap if you wish. Show your appreciation. That'd be fantastic. So what are we talking about in today's program? Well, joining me in the studio is Linda Bazant. She's a barrister. She also deals with data protection. I know what you're doing right now, and also is a Brexit consultant, and we're talking about how to prepare for a no-deal Brexit. Now, this program is the update, just to bring us up to speed from where we should be. We've done a number of programs looking at Brexit. Last week we talked about the politics behind Brexit. We don't do this every week, by the way. We do talk about things like sales technique, marketing and so on. But let's introduce my guest, Linda Bazant. Lovely to have you on the show today. It is something, there will be people that will be yawning and going, just would somebody please get on with it, do something one way or the other. How do you think it's affecting business, Lynn?
I think we all thought that we were ready on the 29th of March, and then of course there was a big upset when we actually didn't leave the EU. An awful lot of businesses are annoyed because they prepared really hard for the 29th of March, and it's been left in limbo more or less ever since then. But now that the government are trying to say that we will definitely leave on the 31st of October, I think there's a bit more momentum.
There seems to be a lot of confusion for small business owners who are watching this today are very confused. It seems that the media does tend to have a bias, yes, one way or the other. And I suppose it's where you're sitting, isn't it, when you're watching the TV, how you take the information that they're broadcasting to you. But, you know, when we look back at last week's particular programme, when you're talking to businesses, what are the problems they're having and what are their worries? I
think their worries are that there is so much information coming out from the government website at the moment. It is information overload, although, as I say, an awful lot of businesses were more or less prepared at the end of March. But some businesses felt at the end of March, because nothing happened, and although we were going towards October 31st, this is a couple of months ago, that they just threw their hands up and said, what's the point? Because it just doesn't happen. But now there's more momentum with Boris thinking that he can get a deal, but who knows?
Well, of course, that was on the news this morning. There is this feeling that there may be a deal in place. Yes. It looks like Barnier and Juncker are becoming more receptive to discussing it a little bit more. But you know, what do we do? Because we're still in this area of limbo. We've had Labour with their big conference over the weekend. Yeah. As a party, they don't know what they're
sitting on the fence.
The Conservatives are all over the place. There's only one, you know, the Lib Dems. They've turned around. At least we know what they're going to do.
They want to remain
not liberal, not democratic. They're just going to say no. We're going to stay in.
Exactly.
When you've talked to companies, they're preparing, yes, but what kind of things have you been doing for them?
Really helping them out with import-export, the forms that they need to fill out to prepare for no-deal Brexit, where to go on the government website for the different types of information that they need, especially if they've got, for example, employees that are working in Europe at the moment, how it's going to affect them, accountants, lawyers, professional status, what do they have to do now if there is a no-deal Brexit?
The man in the street's going to say that really, yes, it's going to affect him, but they don't feel the direct effects immediately. Small businesses would probably say, in many respects, the same thing. The one-man bands, the solopreneurs, the entrepreneurs, even the small businesses up to 10, 20 people are going to say they're not feeling the effect. What they are seeing, though, is this general consensus, this fear at the moment to do business. Is that what you're saying too?
Yes, I am. And what I'm encouraging people to do is to continue with business development and networking in the way that they always have done. Really, I suppose that the businesses that I've been talking to that are really concerned are the ones that are import-export businesses, trade across the water effectively.
All right, well, let's look at some of the topics that we're going to be looking at here. What is the government doing to prepare businesses for a no-deal Brexit if we are unable to reach a deal? It seems they're putting a lot of effort into sending out, as you said, a number of press releases and advice, and of course that could all be a big waste of time if there is a deal of one way or another. So what is available for small businesses online at the moment from the government? If
you go to the government website gov.uk/Brexit, all of the information that you have that you need is on there. They cater for small business and the larger business, so everything is on there. You can also sign up for daily emails that they send out to you on all of the different areas that will be affected by a no-deal Brexit. The only thing that is unfortunate, of course, is that because there are so many...
Well, I was going to say, a criticism you have made is it just seems it fills your inbox.
Bombarded with them. But I need to be able to keep up with exactly what's going on what they're going to decide that we're going to be doing on the no-deal Brexit. There's already been a change, for example. The EU a few months ago said that if you had a .eu domain name and you were based in the UK, you could no longer use it. And they were going to take it away from you. However, about a month ago, they decided that maybe that wasn't such a good idea and that they wouldn't do that after all.
There's a lot of nonsense going on, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot of tit for tat, I think, but we need to look at it sensibly, common sense-wise, and from a business point of view.
Now, we're going to talk about, a little bit later on, we're going to talk about the dreaded GDPR, which I know you've done a lot of work on, data protection for a lot of your different clients. We're going to talk about that, but we'll stay at the moment on imports and exports. Is it going to become more and more difficult? Because it does seem that Calais, it does seem that the French are actually preparing for this. It's in nobody's interest, is it, for there to be no trade or for trade to be hampered between us and Europe. And it seems that whenever we listen to mainstream media, we seem to forget that it is reciprocal what's going on here. The French farmers want to put their produce on the shelves of Waitrose. There's no two ways about it, and they want to get paid for it. The German car manufacturers want to sell their cars here in the UK. I mean, we've got Germany on the brink of recession at the moment, one more quarter, and they're really going to be in the mire. So is it a lot of fuss, do you think, about nothing, and do you think inevitably at the last minute there will be some form of a free trade deal or something?
You're asking me a question that's asked of an awful lot of people in the media. That's the question, isn't it?
And
really nobody knows, which goes back to the uncertainty issue that we're having. But the one thing that you can be sure of is that if there is a no-deal Brexit, there will be lots of paperwork to deal with. Now, that's paperwork that is brought forward by our respective governments in the UK and across the EU. But of course, businesses deal with business. So they will be talking to their counterparts in Germany, in France, in Spain, and all of the other countries, and working out a way that they can actually work together and fill out all of the forms and so on, so that there is as little disruption as possible. But there is going to probably be some delay here and there.
What would you say to a business that is sitting back and waiting for it to happen and doing nothing at the moment?
Don't do that. Really don't do that. You've got to be ready, because otherwise your competition is going to get the jump on you.
But the issue is, isn't it, being ready for what? And that is the problem, isn't it? Because we're not certain whatever the deal is that comes out, it's going to be shades of grey, isn't it?
Well, that's true, but if you move away from import-export at the moment, although it touches on that, currency, the strength of the pound against the euro. If we have a deal or a no-deal Brexit at the end of October, what happens to the pound? Is that going to be stronger? Is it going to be weaker? What issues are you going to have when you're buying product?
It's been interesting. It's been a roller coaster ride for the pound, hasn't it?
Yes.
I remember earlier on in the year it was 114, 116 at one point when all this was going on. We've been down to 119, haven't we, against the euro, and now it's crept back up again. We're about 113, something like that.
124.
Oh, that's against the dollar.
Against the dollar, yes.
So I was just talking against the euro, but
Yes.
even against the dollar, it's dragging its way back up again, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It'll never be those wonderful days where it was 160 and a holiday in the States was absolutely fantastically cheap. But it's never going to be that again. Let's look at the rules that are out there. Will the new rules for exporting and importing between the UK and the EU, will there be new rules out there? Are they going to be, or is it going to be more of the same rules, slightly different flavour?
Possibly same rules, slightly different flavour, but what I want to do today is touch on the basics around importing and exporting. And the reason for that is if you did a deep dive into all of it, we would be here for more than an hour because it's quite complex.
Well, they've been doing a deep dive into it for 3 years, haven't they? Yes.
Well, they obviously need to resolve.
We're not going to resolve it in an hour, are we?
No. But as I say, there's more in-depth information being produced by the government on a daily basis around importing and exporting. But what businesses need to do if they import and export is look at all of the processes and procedures that will be changing for customs and excise. Look at any forms of the new forms that they need to fill out. Are there any processes that they can perhaps join to make them, for example, a form of trusted trader, perhaps, that will help them when dealing with the EU? All of those kind of things they need to look into. And one of the most important things that I can't stress enough is it's all very well for you to have looked at your business and made sure that all of your processes and procedures are in place. But if you deal with third parties, you need to make absolutely certain that they are compliant as well.
All right, we're going to be talking about the Economic Operator Registration Identification Number, EORI. We have covered it before on the programme. I know some people are going to be sitting there going, this is as dull as watching wallpaper dry, but this is imperative that we're all prepared for this because we may have been bombarded with it. What was really disappointing for me was they were doing some vox pops with some people in the street and they were saying, well, what do you think about Brexit? And they were saying, oh, just get on with it, I'm sick of it. We just can't do that. We've got to be prepared, we've got to be ready. More to come from Linda Bazant in just a few moments' time on this edition of Business Connections Live. Linda, of course, a barrister, data protection and also Brexit consultant as well. If you have a question, you can go on to LinkedIn and you can leave your questions there. You can also do it on Facebook and also on YouTube as well. You're watching Business Connections Live. It's lovely to have your company. We're live on a Monday on all those different social media platforms. Let's go back a week now, shall we? Antonio Falco was my guest on last week's edition of the programme, and he was saying, never mind the politics, concentrate on your business. It was a great show. Some really good advice. You could just get his frustration coming over when we were talking about the whole essence of what Brexit meant to businesses last week. But what was really interesting is as the program went on, he was giving some really good advice on what you should be doing right now, today, when it comes to growing sales in your organisation. Good show. Here are the highlights from last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Now on today's show, we're going to be discussing why you should ignore the politics that are going on just at the moment and just focus on growing and making your business successful. Joining me in the studio, he's somewhat outspoken, Antonio Falco. He is the sales director.
I care about businesses. I care about all those business people out there that have put everything on the line to start and run a business, to employ people, to pay their taxes and to be part of the community, and particularly small businesses. What people don't understand at small businesses is that they are actually a part of the fabric of their local community. So I'm supporting all those businesses, and yes, my job is in the field that I specialise in is about trying to help those businesses figure out how they're going to find the next customer, how their sales team are going to be able to get through their sales cycle, how they're going to figure out how to close a sale, how they're going to grow all the things you've just mentioned, Zico. That's what I care about, because all those things matter. With the recession and the banking scandal, if I can call it that hit us 10 years ago, what starts to happen is that people start to look at the businesses in all spheres in terms of how they operate. How ethical is this business? How do they deal with their customers? How do they deal with their suppliers? Are they offering a high level of service? Are they not caring about? the environment? Are they so businesses have come under the spotlight in terms of the way they operate. I'm writing a new book. It's called The Morality of Business. Okay, and one of the sections in this book comes down to government, because government is very happy to take the taxes from businesses and people, but they're not happy to make the decisions like the ones that we're asking them to make right now. So they have to sort their act out, because businesses are under scrutiny at the moment and will continue to be. I'm just interested in our business community, and my role is to help them figure out how we're going to get more customers in the door. And so I would say to people watching that at the end of the day, whatever's happening, the government isn't actually directly running your business. So you have an opportunity to steer your business in whatever direction you think you need to steer it. Of course, this is a major issue that's stopping some of your decisions, and of course there's going to be some stalling in the economy as a result. It's happening now. But if you're a business sitting at home watching this and you're thinking who, what, where and how, all I'll say to you is this: you have control, you have the levers of power on your business. Go back to some fundamentals. Understand what you're selling, why somebody would buy it, who you're going to try and sell it to, and then set yourself some hard-nosed targets. And by targets, I mean you've got to have a financial target. What is your turnover and profit target for your business in the coming year? And then to the side of that, the other targets you need to have are what I call activity targets. How many people do I need to speak to? How many proposals do I need to get out the door? How many events do I need to go to meet new people? How many people do I need to call? All that kind of what I call business development work. Focus on those four things, and your business will move forward positively. Well, I think what you have to do is you have to figure out what works for you. So what works for me is public speaking. I always try and get somewhere that I can speak, a business group or an exhibition that I can speak at. That's one of my things. Second thing I do is I try and get out a newsletter every quarter. I don't do it monthly because I don't want to overload my subscription base. So I send out a newsletter quarterly, and you probably saw one that I sent recently about me being on the show. And what do I try and do in that newsletter? I try and give some information. The third thing I try and do is I go to networking events that I think are going to be useful, and I have, to be honest, reined back on a lot of those because I try and find the ones that suit me and my business and the type of client that I'm looking for. So you have to do that. You have to interact with people. The fourth thing I do is I still do try and actually talk to people directly. I do my research on business sectors and on companies, and I write to them specifically about how I might be able to help them. And the word is might. My name is Antonio Falco. I'm the sales director. I'm all about how we make the next sale. So if you've got a sales team that isn't performing, we need to talk. If you've got a business that isn't bringing the sales in, we need to talk. But fundamentally, what you need to do is review what your business is about. Do I know what I'm selling? Do I know who I'm trying to sell it to? Do I know why they're going to buy it? And have I set in place, in stone, targets to try and achieve? Because unless you do that, you're going to be just sailing off into the wind.
Antonio Falco from last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Great show, actually. Do check it out. You'll get some great advice when it comes to growing your sales team, maybe encouraging them, give them the advice they need to bring more sales in. So a good show at Antonio Falco. Just go to our website at businessconnectionslive.com. And if you're thinking to yourself, this would be a great way of getting my message over, perhaps you are sending out a newsletter on a weekly basis. Listen, turn your readers into viewers. Get in touch with us here at Business Connections Live and have a program just like this one, especially for your business, your organization. You can use it. It's great for employee comms. Fantastic vehicle for that. Great to inform your customers, and a fantastic vehicle to promote and market your organization or your business. Want more details? Well, why don't you drop us an email to this address? It is studio@businessconnectionslive.com. Better still, pick the phone up and give us a ring on 01784 256 777. Don't forget as well, you can follow our stream of consciousness at BCL Business TV on Twitter. You can also watch the programs on LinkedIn Live each and every week. That means you'll be able to go back and look at the program at a later date as well. But also you can watch the programs on YouTube. You can also watch them on the website and so on. Go to the website. There's over 370 programs there right now at businessconnectionslive.com. All for free at the moment, but who who knows? Things may change. So, get in contact with us here at Business Connections Live and turn your business around and make it more media savvy by getting in contact with us here at Business Connections Live. Now, my guest on today's show is Linda Bazant. She's a barrister, data protection and Brexit consultant. We're talking about how to prepare for a no-deal Brexit. Before we start, interesting, David Robson, he's just left a message for us here on LinkedIn. Every business needs to consider what's the angle here, what I can explore and what to exploit. I suppose, in many ways, that leads on to this question. What can businesses do to prepare?
Well, as far as export and import is concerned, which is what we're discussing in this particular section, they need to make sure that they have got all of the appropriate registration numbers that they need for exporting and importing going forward. Now,
this is the EORI, isn't it? So tell us a little bit more about that, because a lot of people are very confused about this and they don't truly understand what an EORI is, an Economic Operator Registration Identification Number. What's that all about then?
That is, if you want to import and export with the EU, you must have this number or you will not be able to trade. Most businesses already have that number, but it's prefixed with an EU prefix. Now, any business that wants to start to trade or is trading at the moment will have to have a GB prefix. So any business that is wants to start trading from the 31st of October, apply for your EORI number now, and it will only take you 3 days for them to come through with the number.
Because originally this was taking up to 18 months at one stage, wasn't it?
No, actually you're confusing that with AEO.
Of course I am.
Which is something completely different, which we will discuss later on in the programme.
Is this the one that they're giving out like sweets at the moment then, the EORI?
It's not like sweets. You need to fill out all of the documentation online, but it's quite easy to fill out and you will get your number within 3 days, and that allows you to import export. If you don't have an EORI number, you will not be able to trade.
So do you think, for instance, I've been watching the TV and I've been wondering, there hasn't been a lot of news about the EORI. Do businesses know about it from your experience? Are businesses aware that they need this? Have the government been actually proactive in letting businesses know it's necessary? I haven't seen anything come in here.
No, and I think that's one of the problems with regard to export-import. Although you're seeing some of the adverts on the television and hearing them on the radio about the fact that we're leaving at the end of October and that you need to make sure that your business is ready, and they give you gov.uk/Brexit website to go to, they're not being specific about exports, imports. As I said at the beginning of the programme, this is a complex area. There is so much to go through for each individual business that it will be probably difficult for them to just settle on one area when they're trying to advertise it. But then, having said that, if you are a business that already exports and imports, you should be aware of what's happening already, because you will be receiving information from the government and also your local chambers of commerce. Any export trade body that you are a member of will be giving you this in reams. So most export-import companies will already know. And of course, if they use freight forwarders, distributors, they will be able to give them the information that they need to.
It's just a number to many people. What does it actually allow you to do?
It allows you to continue to trade with the EU.
So it's just effectively a reference number that says it's a bit like a passport for your goods, then, is it?
It is, more or less, and it doesn't take very long to do. What actually happens is it's a unique number that is used to monitor trade between the EU and non-EU countries.
Sounds like it's going to be a costly addition to my pile of numbers that I have. So is it expensive to get? You say it's easy to actually register and get the number itself. So I need that GB number in front, but is it going to cost me a lot of money?
It's not going to cost you anything. It's free to apply for.
Oh, really? So
yes.
That's pretty good.
Yes.
Now, I was confusing that. So that's the EORI. The other number that I was confusing was the...
That is the Authorised Economic Operator. Now that's AEO. Now that's
got a migraine coming on. Yeah.
But before we cover that, we really need to go back a bit. As I said, there's no fee to pay, but of course, one of the things is that you would expect that most businesses already had EORI numbers. Now, the HMRC has already issued nearly 90,000 VAT registered businesses an EORI number, but you still need to register if you are not VAT registered. It's not just for VAT registered businesses.
So this is a mass registration that's going on. So
it is.
What Customs and Excise have done, they've said, if you're an operating business in the UK, are they saying regardless of whether you're trading with Europe or not, here's your number?
No, because most businesses that want to trade with Europe, if they're doing export-import, they will automatically apply for this anyway. But if you don't, then it's not necessary.
It's a thought that's gone into my head. So this is physical goods. What about intellectual goods? If you're trading electronically across borders, is that an issue as well? Do you still need this number?
That's going to be an issue as well, but there is a separate area that deals with that on the government website.
Are we kind of going into GDPR as well a bit there?
Well, that's more services and so on. So that's another area.
Okay, then. So we've gone back. Yes.
And also,
right,
you need to make sure that on EORI, once again, that your third-party suppliers all have this number as well. Obviously, big freight companies and so on would already have that, but you're looking at freight companies, agents, manufacturers, distributors, transport companies, and port operators.
What's the consequence for not having it?
You won't be able to trade.
That's the end of it. Is it something that you can piggyback on the back of somebody else's? So if you're not prepared, you haven't got the number, you said it's going to take 3 days, it's a free registration and a free number to get, but can you go to a transport company or a trade
agent? You'd go through an agent, but for the sake of the application, the fact it's so easy and you'll have something back within 3 days, I would make sure you have your own.
All right, so we kind of alluded, we touched on the other number that people may need. Tell us a bit more about that. What's the background and what is it?
Right, authorised economic operator. That's for if you distribute goods globally. You need to apply for an AEO, and the reason for that is it's a certified standard for parties all across all stages of the supply chain, and it's internationally recognised by more than 70 countries.
So is this something, I mean, for instance, with the first number we're talking about, because I know there's a load of numbers going on here, and I don't want to be throwing it at people, but with the EORI, if we stay in, we don't need to worry about it. If we drop out, we do need to get it.
Yes.
Do we need it also for world trade as well, WTO rules?
Yes.
So we do need that number.
No, I beg your pardon. That's for Europe.
Right.
Okay.
So only with trading with Europe.
But remember that things are changing on a daily basis, so there may be additional things that come out from the government with regard to that.
So they could change their mind at a moment's notice.
Unfortunately, yes.
If you are watching this program, by the way, on LinkedIn, we just heard that John McDonnell is making a speech at the moment at the Labour conference. He is advocating a shorter working week. That'd be nice. I'd like to know how we as a business will actually fit that in and be able to pay for it. But thank you very much, John. Shorter working week is on its way. Okay, then, moving on then, the AEO. Tell us more about this.
As I say, it's a certified standard for parties, internationally recognised, and any business can apply for it, but it's a very lengthy process. It can take many months. There's an extensive assessment process, and which includes self-assessment and visits to your premises by HMRC for audits on site.
So what are they looking for when they do those audits? What's the purpose of this?
They are effectively saying that if you have an AEO, you are a trusted trader effectively, and that people can trust you, that when they deal with you, it enables you perhaps to get things through customs a bit quicker, and that you are a quality business to deal with, which is why HMRC gets involved and why they audit you, because you'll need to provide them with evidence of a history of your tax and customs compliancy going back 3 years, that you have a satisfactory system of managing commercial and transport records, and evidence of financial solvency and evidence of competence.
Well, there you go. That's gonna be an incredible drain on some businesses in the future if they do actually have to go down the route of getting that. Seems to be quite a large incumbent problem for those kind of businesses. Why are they doing that if they don't need it right now while we're still members of the EU?
You'll find an awful lot of the bigger businesses already have it. With regard to trusted, remember, if we leave the EU, we're going to have problems at the border. So AEO enables you to perhaps overcome some of those obstacles because you are trusted, and it's easier for you to get goods through because of the way that they set up AEO.
Have they done anything to speed up the registration process for that? Because, as I said, that's the one that I remember was 18 months, wasn't it?
That's right.
It took quite some time to get that particular number. Have they sped the process up at all?
Unfortunately,
They've slowed it down.
Because everybody was rushing to make sure that they had it for the 29th of March. Once the 29th of March passed and we didn't leave, some businesses slowed down a bit, some businesses just didn't bother, and so we're starting the panic all over again. But most big businesses already have this.
Is there an element of collective incompetence, do you think, going on, both from people who are exporting and importing to the EU, government departments, people in general? Is there collective incompetence, do you think?
I don't know if it's a collective incompetence more perhaps than the fact that nobody's been in this position before. No one's left the EU before. There is no manual for this, so they're kind of making the rules up as they go along, and every time they come across a possible obstacle, they've got to get over that obstacle and fix it, but not just fix it themselves, but make sure that businesses understand exactly where to go for help and what to do.
So in 30 seconds then, let's do a brief summary of what we've talked about. EORI, the Economic Operator Registration Identification Number, who can get it?
Everybody can get that. You must get it whether you are VAT registered or not. If you are trading with the EU, get an EORI number.
And the AEO number and AEO status for a business, that takes a bit longer?
That takes a bit longer, but it's mainly for businesses that deal globally on a regular basis.
All right, more to come from Linda Bazant in just a few moments' time here on this edition of Business Connections Live. If you are watching us on LinkedIn today, if you've got a question for Linda, please be our guest and just stick it on the board by the side of the programme as you're watching it, and we'll see what answers we can get for you today on the live programme. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always. Let's go back again and get you some really good advice. This time we're going back to a great programme, how automation will impact your workforce. The programme went out on the 24th of June 2019. Business Connections Live 266. My guest in the studio was Joe Taylor of Manpower Group Solutions. We were talking about the impact that digitisation is having on the world of work and what employers need to do to remain competitive. It was drawing on their survey, this is Manpower's survey of 19,000 employers in 44 countries. And Joe discussed the ways in which organisations foresee automation and digitisation affecting their businesses and their strategies, and we kind of asked the question what we as businesses should consider to remain competitive in the war for talent. Great show with Jo. She was a terrific guest and some really good advice as well. If you're in the market as well for trying to get additional manpower within your organisation, then Manpower would be a good place to start. Some good key takeaways from the programme, and with that, here's Joe Taylor on Business Connections Live.
I'm Joe Taylor. I'm Client Services Director from Manpower Group Solution. And I think if I start from an employer perspective to start off with, I think the way in which you've recruited talent into your business over the last few years, it may have worked, it may still work to a degree, but what I would do is urge you to look at your needs over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, and then really look at how you're going to engage the right people to deliver your business, its products, its services, and ultimately economic growth throughout that time. I think you've got to have a strategy which is adaptable and which is flexible, and that might be that, you know, permanent recruitment, a combination with contract is what you're looking to do. But I think it's more about be open to trying different things. The way in which the workforce and the landscape is going, the war for talent is not going anywhere, so you need to be a little bit more flexible and take a few more risks in order to engage the right people for your business future. From a candidate perspective, I would say that the best piece of advice I could say is to get out there, look at what you really want to do, what engages you, what makes you happy in the job, what industries are you interested in, what companies are you interested in, and research those businesses and approach them directly. I'm not trying to do us out of a job from a recruitment business perspective, but actually from your own perspective, don't just rely on third parties, take the initiative, do your research, find out something you're really interested in and make that connection directly. And also make sure that from a social channel perspective that you've got a LinkedIn profile, that you've not got things on your social channels that you wouldn't maybe want future employers to find out, and generally just make yourself more available and make yourself more attractive to prospective employers.
Good advice there from Joe Taylor from Manpower Group Solutions. If you want to watch the entire program, go to the website businessconnectionslive.com, and you can check out all the good advice that Joe gives there on that particular program. The website address, businessconnectionslive.com, over 270 odd hours if you'd like to find out more about coming on the program. Also, if you're thinking about media training, that's a really handy thing these days. If you were Thomas Cook, you wouldn't, well, do they care anymore? Probably not, but I mean, you need someone, if you need a spokesperson, if you want to increase the value of your business, if you want to do brand protection, then media training is an important route to go. We do media training here at Business Connections Live in a live studio environment. You will come in, you'll be interviewed. It's a good day, actually, great team building day. If you want more details about that, once again, do drop us the email to studio@businessconnectionslive.com. Thank you. That was very quick, by the way. Or give us a call. I'll be able to go the whole hog now on 01784 256 777. You're watching Business Connections Live. Today we're talking about how to prepare for a no-deal Brexit. It's our update programme. I suppose many of us don't really know what is going on at the moment and how things are changing. They do seem to be changing, not just on a daily basis, but on an hourly basis nearly. My guest in the studio today is Linda Bazant. She's a barrister, data protection and Brexit consultant. Just going back to AEO for a moment. When we leave, if we leave the EU, will we still need an AEO number?
AEO will still be the right thing to have because it's globally recognised.
So that will work with WTO rules too?
Yeah, at the moment the government is saying that they wouldn't see any reason to change that.
And I suppose the process and the procedures that any business needs to go through is actually going to make their business operate more smoothly if they're already set up for the AEO.
It makes them more competitive.
All right. Okay, let's move on to another area that has been terrifying people. There was a lot of talk a year ago when it came to GDPR, and people were going, oh my word, GDPR, we all received hundreds of emails, and people were thinking that they had to throw their lists away or they couldn't trade again. Where have we got to, first of all, within the UK when it comes to GDPR? Has anybody been fined? Has anybody got into trouble? We've heard about British Airways. They were given a bit of a good kicking, weren't they? And a few other large organisations, but the small businesses, they've been pretty much left alone, haven't they?
Actually, no, they haven't. There was a travel agent that has recently been fined £80,000, and that's a small business, because all of the data that they were getting in, estate agent, not travel agent, all of the data that they were bringing in was just being left lying around the office. It was being exchanged between people. People were talking to some of their other customers about other people's requirements and giving them out details. They just hadn't bothered to be GDPR compliant. They'd done no training of their staff whatsoever, and so they were fined £80,000, which for them was a lot of money.
Is the Information Commissioner's office, the ICO, do they have real teeth now, and are they going after people?
They are going after people. They've actually employed another 170 people since January, and they are looking very seriously now at not just the big boys, but they're going to start drilling down into SMEs. They've kind of left SMEs alone just for a little while, purely because obviously GDPR was new, and they were doing what they're trying to say is they don't want to just fine you. They want to kill you. They want to discuss with you what you haven't done and what you should be doing. And in my experience, most companies have just put together GDPR procedures, put them on an email, sent them out to their staff and said, read those. And that's not enough. You have to do proper data protection training of all of your staff so that they understand exactly how those procedures work and how they can affect the business.
When it comes, you're a barrister, obviously, and I've often heard you say ignorance of the law is no defence. So is it the same with GDPR? Ignorance of GDPR is no defence. Just because you don't know, you will still get fined, they will still take you to the cleaners, they will still sort you out once and for all.
18 months on, most definitely, especially if what you have done is just not bothered.
If there was a quick and easy way of going down the route, I know you deal with a number of companies when it comes to GDPR and you go in and you advise them. Are there some very simple things that they can do? You mentioned their training, but it sounds to me like a clean desk policy, that kind of works as well. But there is this temptation, isn't there, that you do a day's work, you finish doing a day's work, then you walk out the door.
Yeah.
And, so is that the kind of work practices that need to stop?
Yes, you have to get in the mindset of leaving a clear desk. If your desk is lockable, put everything in the drawer at the end of the day and lock it away. One of the other things as well is people working on their screens, especially if you're an open plan office. If you have visitors to the office, remember that they can see what you're working on. So you've got to be very careful about your screen and who's walking past. Whiteboards. How many offices have whiteboards in their conference room where they leave everything that they've been talking about up on the board? And I'm talking about personal data here, which anybody can see right the way down to the cleaner.
Because I do understand that in some organisations where you've got telesales teams and maybe just people who are taking customer inquiries, they don't give them notepads anymore. They actually give them small whiteboards that they write on, so there's nothing that is kept. They're not writing on paper that can be filed or thrown away. They're writing on a whiteboard that is cleaned at the end of the day.
Yes.
So that's true.
So they haven't got, some of them are doing that so that they haven't got the data at the end of the day. But then having said that, if they're talking about a specific customer, some of that information has got to be uploaded and kept somewhere, purely for record keeping.
Now, that leads us on to the whole area of data and data management. And I think that terrifies a lot of people. And there is this confusion about where your data lives, if it's living in the UK on a server. Well, if it's living in the cloud, I mean, what do you need to do? What do you need to know about where your cloud servers are? Is it important that your cloud servers, if they're in America, is it different to your cloud servers in Docklands or in the Midlands or servers that are in Europe? I mean, when it comes to where your data is stored, that must be a big concern for people as well, because now you've got hubs of data all over the place that you're not in control of.
Yes, you do. What you need to do globally is look at the company that you're dealing with and what their data privacy notice is and what their terms and conditions are and the way that they're dealing with privacy. And what you will find now is that since the advent of GDPR and Europe being so very particular about what happens to EU citizens' data going off around the world, other countries are also falling into line as well. So, for example, if your data is being sent to America and you're dealing with an American company, you need to make sure that they are signed up to what's called the Privacy Shield. Mm-hmm. And if they're signed up to the Privacy Shield, that they are dealing with the data in the same way that the EU would deal with their data from a privacy point of view, and that EU citizens have access to their data in the same way that we do in the UK with subject access request.
It must be frightening though if you're dealing, because there's so many businesses out there that use the Amazon servers, and the Amazon servers are all over the place. It's an American company, obviously. They'll have servers here in the UK. There will be nodes across Europe and all this kind of stuff. And what many businesses do, they put their own front end so they'll maybe do data recovery or data storage, and it'll be a very pretty front end that they're offering to their customers. But the actual tools that are doing the job, the cloud service, is Amazon. So what happens then? Where does the responsibility lie?
They declare that in their privacy notice.
They do.
They have to declare it in their privacy
where
notice
it is stored.
so that you know exactly because you need to know what's happening with your data, and that's set out in your privacy notice. So, for example, if we have a no-deal Brexit, that means that we are no longer EU citizens. So when our personal data is sent to outside of the EU to other countries like America, there will be a special notice that is on the American websites that talks about the way that it will deal with UK citizens' data.
Now, I keep hearing this expression, third world. And now, whenever you hear third world, you think of something completely different. But apparently, in the world of data security, we will become a third world country. Even though we have implemented the general data protection regulations, probably were quite intrinsic in setting it up and speccing it out at the very beginning, and probably went along and go, here's what we should be doing, and Europe followed us, or at least had a say into it. So we've been quite instrumental in GDPR and the development of the rules, but if we leave, we become a third world country. What does that mean when it comes to data?
Okay, if we leave without a deal, we become a third country, and what that means
is it a third world or a third country?
Third country. So what that means is that we are no longer considered adequate for the way that we protect the data that comes from EU citizens. So
is that just somebody in Brussels going, yeah? Isn't it?
You might think that.
You might think you couldn't comment, right? Okay.
But actually, in my view, I don't see any reason why I couldn't have a personal view. I think it's petty, and especially as we are so closely aligned with GDPR. Now, the general consensus of opinion seems to be that if we come out without a deal, that we will no longer be adequate as far as the EU is concerned. Yes, it can take up to 18 months for us to become adequate, because we have to go through all of the processes and so on. But we also feel in the UK that because we are so closely aligned, it shouldn't take 18 months. But it all depends on...
We're not even closely aligned. We're actually at the moment operating with the same rules, aren't we?
We are, except for the fact that with regard to the way that we surveil our citizens in this country, there's a little bit of discomfort.
Sorry, the way we...
CCTV surveillance.
Oh, right. Oh, surveillance.
There's a little bit of discomfort with the fact that perhaps we do more surveillance in this country than they do in the EU, and it's not covered quite as well as it is in the EU, which means that there is a little bit of a difference between their data protection and ours, and they would use that as the reason to say that we have to apply for adequacy status.
Let's talk a little bit more about data protection in just a few moments' time here on this edition of Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always on the live programme, and thank you very much if you've been watching the show today on LinkedIn. It's our first programme on LinkedIn Live, which is fantastic for us. We only found out about it just before we came on air, so that was good news there. So thank you very much to the team at LinkedIn for sorting that out for us. Lots of comments on LinkedIn at the moment. There's something that I've been rattling on about. I'd love to know your comments on this as well, is the noise that is on LinkedIn. It's I found myself entering into conversations, some of the different people that I follow, it's we use this expression all the time about everything being social media, and it came up in last week's programme as well that LinkedIn is a professional platform, and what people do tend to do is that they do stick videos up of their dogs or holidays, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Is that okay to do that on a professional platform, a platform that was originally intended for employment purposes, that people would go there if they wanted to employ? And it's become more than that. But it is interesting that people's perception that they've put the word social definitely in front of LinkedIn as well, so it becomes yet another social media platform. Or do you feel that we've got enough social media platforms, i.e. we've got Instagram, we've got Pinterest, we've got Facebook, of course, we've got YouTube, I suppose, to a certain extent, that really a professional platform should be targeting and looking straight towards, well, business to business. Is that what this platform or LinkedIn as a platform is all about? I'd love to know your comments on that. If you do have any views, leave them with this particular program on LinkedIn or on YouTube or on any of our platforms, any of our social media platforms. You can leave a view, and maybe we'll do a program on that in the future. I do think that there's a little bit of confusion. The worry that I've got for LinkedIn is it could become very popular to leave dog videos, cat videos, and those kind of videos on LinkedIn. And what actually happens, it becomes noise, and so the effectiveness of the platform drops off, and so we lose the platform in total. Content that should really be on Facebook should be on Facebook, and content that is about business to business should be on LinkedIn. I'd love to know your views on that. I'm probably completely wrong, but I'd love to find out. So do leave a comment, let us know what you think, and maybe we'll have a program on that, and maybe get you on the program in the future as well. You're watching Business Connections Live. Today we're talking about how to prepare for a no-deal Brexit. My guest in the studio is Linda Bazant. She's a barrister, data protection and Brexit consultant. She's also the co-owner, actually, of Business Connections Live, so it was very handy to have Linda on the programme today. She walked from there to here, which is fantastic. So is there any other points that we need to consider when it comes to GDPR?
Yes, there are. So with regard to becoming a third country, that means what our government have decided is that UK personal data can still be sent to the EU. That won't be an issue.
So this is more nonsense going on now, isn't it?
But the EU have decided that their citizens' data can't just be sent over to us, which will mean that any company that deals with EU citizens' data, personal data, will have to set up new mechanisms to deal with those businesses. And it's caused an issue for some of the companies over here that do data processing, because they are getting the information from a data processor in the EU and processing it in the UK.
So what's the easy way around it? Is it to set up a remote office in an EU country?
They can set up a remote office in the EU. They can also have what are called standard contractual clauses. So they'll set up a new agreement with the company in the EU that enables them to transfer the data over to the UK. But it's really an agreement from the EU company to the UK company, although there's nothing to stop UK companies saying, look, because things are going to change, we would like to set up this agreement with you. Here's the template. And the template is downloadable from the Information Commissioner's website, but you mustn't change it. You've got to stick to exactly what the template is. And with regard to that, one of the other issues that we have here, you were talking about smaller businesses and fines and so on. If you are processing EU citizens' data without the proper contracts in place and you have a serious breach, one of the questions that the Information Commissioner's Office asks you when you report the breach is, can you please confirm that you trained your staff in the past 2 years? And there are many businesses that actually can't confirm that. Now, that could be an issue with regard to any fine that you might be issued to you, because it's one of the standards that they would expect you to have complied with that you haven't, and it can add to your fine.
Is there a checklist anywhere for small businesses where they can sit down and go, done it, done it, done it, done it, done it? Where will they find that?
Information Commissioner's website has an excellent checklist for all businesses to go to that they can, and it is a tick box checklist.
All right, so that's really good news then, isn't it? Anything else that we need to consider when it comes to GDPR and also where we are at the moment? We can go back to the imports and exports again, but is there anything else that we need to consider when it comes to GDPR as far as the future is concerned? And does all this go away if we stay in, by the way?
It doesn't. If we stay in, it doesn't go away. And by stay in, I'm assuming you mean if we get a deal.
Yeah.
So if we get a deal, there will be a transition period. So that means that from the 31st of October, if we've got a deal, as far as data protection is concerned, everything continues on the same way that it is at the moment. But there will be a transition deal.
So are we talking about then that during that period we drift slowly apart?
Effectively, yes. So what's happening, we talked about the adequacy decision that the EU will process for us if we leave without a deal. But if we leave with a deal, between the deal being agreed and the transition period when we finally leave, which is end of 2020, they will be talking about the adequacy decision, and we will have that adequacy decision before we finally leave.
So it's going to be confusing and difficult times, isn't it?
It is.
All right then. Anything else we need to cover as far as GDPR is concerned now?
The other thing to know about GDPR is that the EU, for example, deal with lots of countries outside of the EU, and they have been given adequacy status. So there's no reason to assume that we wouldn't be given adequacy status. And what will happen after we leave the EU is that any EU country that has been given EU adequacy status for GDPR, for data protection, we will continue in the UK to regard them also as adequate.
And is it only the ICO that can fine an organisation? Can a European organisation fine a UK company if we muck it up so it's kind of double bubble? The ICO will fine you, and so will the European equivalent.
Most certainly. One of the problems that we've got with a
really?
no-deal...
That's true, that's going to happen.
Well, one of the problems that we've got with a no-deal Brexit is that the ICO at the moment is part of all the supervisory authorities right the way across Europe. But if we leave without a deal, the ICO will no longer be considered to be one of those supervisory authorities. Now, the ICO are arguing their case at the moment and saying, look, because we have been so instrumental in all of this, we feel that we should always have a seat at the table. And what Europe have said is that what we might consider is that we will allow you to sit at the table to listen to what we discuss, but you won't have any influence. And you won't be able to come to any decisions with regard to our citizens' data.
Seems like a plan, doesn't it? Not a very good one, but it seems like a plan. Anyway, I mean, as always, today's programme was just to give you a bit of a heads up when it comes to preparing for a no-deal Brexit, bit of an update on what's happened in the past. Hope you found the GDPR elements of this interesting, and also if you are in the world of imports and exports. Linda, we always ask our guests at the end of the programme to give us the key takeaways as they see it from today's programme. Say who you are, straight down camera number 4, and really what we need to remember on all the aspects and all the topics that we've talked about today. Please say who you are and where you're from. That'd be a great help. The airwaves, take a breath. The airwaves are all yours.
Thank you, Steve. My name's Linda Bazant from LRB Consult, and today we've been talking about the possibility of a no-deal Brexit and very basically covered some of the bits and pieces that you would need to do. So if you're an exporter or importer, make sure that you've taken the appropriate advice. And remember that the government website gov.uk/Brexit is being updated on a daily basis. But of course you can go to your local chambers of commerce, any trade association that you're a member of, and they should all be able to help you. If you haven't got one already, please apply for an economic operator registration identification number immediately if you've not already done so. If you are a large organisation that trades globally and you haven't already received this, apply for authorised economic operator status if you think that that would meet all of the assessment requirements and that it would benefit your business. Please make sure that any third party that your company deals with has also got all of these processes in place. Otherwise that's going to come back to bite you later. If you're dealing with personal data from the EEA, audit all of your contracts now to ensure that you've the correct mechanisms in place. And remember to ensure that all of your third-party suppliers have done the same. The Information Commissioner's Office website will continue to have updates with regard to a no-deal Brexit. So if you need advice on these or any other issues regarding readiness for Brexit, or you need a speaker for an upcoming event, please contact me on 07 957 422 069, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Or if you wish, you can also go to our website as well, which is here, which is lrbconsult.com, and you can pop along to Linda's website, find out more about the different things that she does, and also get in contact with her there via the website. Listen, it's been really interesting today. Thank you very much indeed. It's so Linda at lindabazant.com if you want to send Linda an email. That's Linda at lindabazant. That's BAZANT.com if you want to drop Linda an email. Linda, it's been an absolutely fascinating insight into the world at the moment. On a personal level then, what do you think? Do you think we've got to ask the question, do you think we will get some form of a deal and we'll be rocking and rolling with the EU for the next couple of years, or do you think it's going to be pushed right to the wire? What's going to happen?
I think the problem that we've got is we don't know if we're being told the truth or not. And that's half the problem. With the government are trying to say, look, as far as we're concerned, we're really getting somewhere. It looks like we're going to have a deal by the end of October. And Boris has always said that he really does want a deal, that no-deal Brexit isn't really an option that he wants to consider, but he had to put that in place. If we get a deal, that's great. There will be a transition period afterwards if we get a deal. Let's hope that that's the way it goes.
Listen, thank you very much indeed for coming in today. It's been a fascinating insight, and I hope you've enjoyed today's program and found it useful for your organisation or for your business. Well, that wraps up today's show. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Hope you enjoyed it. We're back again live next Monday as well. Coming up on future programmes, Festival of Enterprise. It's taking place at the NEC on the 23rd and the 24th of October. We're going to be talking more about that. We're going to be up there, actually. We're going to be taking our studio with us. We're going to be at the show, at the event. We could, who knows, be interviewing you live as we do a live stream from there on those 2 days. Rupert Honeywood will be joining me on a future program. Looking forward to getting him back in the studio. Penny Haslam, the award-winning inspirational speaker, will be on the show as well, and with a fantastic new book out, Warren Knight, he's a professional speaker. He's going to be on the programme in the near future as well, where he looks at digital marketing. But that wraps up today's program. Hope you've enjoyed the show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, don't forget you can always do that simply by dropping us an email to the studio at businessconnectionslive.com. Don't forget, do check out the website till we do it all again next week when we're live at 12 noon on all these different social platforms. From me, Steve Highland, and Linda Bazant, thanks for watching, and bye for now. Bye-bye.
Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel.